Hey kids, great to be back with you. And we're wrapping up our series on the mission of the church. And this week, we're going to be talking about what it is to witness for Christ. We get to do this together. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and may we continue to show Jesus as the body. We love you. Hey kids, great to be back with you this week. You know, we've been talking about how the church is not this. The church is what? It's this. It's people. And we've been looking at what do we do as the church? Well, Jesus calls us to what? Love God, love others, and to make disciples. Well, what is a disciple? Again, it's somebody who imitates Christ. How? Well, a disciple is one who worships Christ, walks with Christ, works for Christ, and then this week we're looking at one who witnesses for Christ. Well, what is a witness? Well, a witness is when you tell somebody something that is amazing that you've experienced or heard or seen, and you just can't wait to tell them. Like, let's say you were camping, and in the night, all of a sudden, a UFO came, and then an alien appeared, and all of a sudden, he descended down to the earth, and he did a Fortnite dance. That'd be pretty amazing, right? That'd be crazy! So what would you do? You'd want to tell your friends about it, right? You would go and you'd call them up. You say, you would not believe what I saw. Well, we know that's not real. That's about as real as Bigfoot, right? Yeah. But what is real is this, is Jesus Christ, who is God, came into this world and he died for you and for me. He paid the price for our sins so that we can have life in him and not go and spend forever in hell, but forever with him in heaven, perfect. That is the most awesome message ever. In fact, it is the most important message we could ever share that will rescue people from death into life. And you and I get to share it and be witnesses of what Christ has done in our lives. Well, how do we share it? Let me share this verse with you. Ephesians 6:18-20 says, "To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints, and also for me, that words may be given to me in opening my mouth boldly to proclaim the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak." You see what Paul is saying? We share the good news of the gospel boldly. Well, what does that mean? It means we're not afraid. We're not ashamed to share this message of the gospel because it's so important. Now, let me ask you this question. What are you passionate about? What are you not afraid to tell people about? Maybe you love to share that you love sports, right? I love sports. Or maybe it is a favorite science fiction film from the 1970s.
Red leader standing by.
Or maybe you love unicorns. Oh, why did I say unicorns? Is there a horn on my head? Can we get it off? Thank you. You see, all of these things that you are not afraid about, we'll tell everybody. And Jesus is telling us to share the good news of the gospel with boldness, with excitement, without fear, and not being ashamed or embarrassed by it. Well, why? Because it's changed our lives, and we want it to change other people's lives. But when we tell people the gospel, we want to do it in the way we heard it, with grace and love and patience, because we hear that we are sinners, that we have offended God by our sin, and that there is a judgment on that, and that is an eternity in hell, separation from God. But then we tell them Jesus has saved us from that. And he has died on the cross to give us that forgiveness, and they can have it too. You see, our boldness isn't just in what we say. It's in how we live and how we follow Jesus and look like Jesus. That's part of our witness. But we just don't do that alone. We do that together. Now look at this next verse. Jesus says in John 13:35, "By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." You see, what Jesus is saying is it's not just in speaking the gospel, but it's in living it out. And we do that together by loving one another, because God's love in our life stands out. So when we forgive one another, when we've hurt one another, that shows the gospel. When we care for one another when we have needs, or when we help one another when we're sick, all of these things reveal the gospel, but it is rooted in love. This is why if we're fighting with one another, all we're going to show is bitterness and anger. But if we're forgiving and loving one another, we are showing Christ. Now, imagine this. If you are just doing it by yourself and showing love, you might be like a little light bulb, right? That gives off a little bit of light. But now imagine if you and your friend did it. That's good. Well, what about a family? That's great too. Now imagine this. Imagine if the whole church was loving one another with the love of Jesus. Get ready for it. Do you know what it would be like? Whoa! That is amazing! We would be able to show the love of Jesus Christ to the whole world just by loving one another and forgiving one another and caring for one another, because God's love stands out in our lives, because it shows how we need to share the gospel today. Isaiah 55:6 says, "Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near." What the Lord is telling us in Isaiah is that there's a time to give the gospel, and that time will come to an end, as our lives will come to an end before we go home to be with the Lord. So there's an urgency. We want to give it today. We want people to know the gospel now, because it's so important that they know that in eternity they can find salvation. Well, what's a picture I can use for this? Imagine if you had a time bomb. And the time bomb is getting ready to go off, and you could see the numbers counting down. Wouldn't you think that we have to turn it off? There's an urgency to send the message to turn it off so it doesn't explode. Well, it's important. Well, turn it off. It's getting... it's not turning off. Can I get some help, please? That seemed easy. You know, it's really not hard to give the gospel. We just have to open our mouths and we have to give it. And we do it because we love it. And we want people to know the love of God. You know, people spend their lives giving their life to the gospel. There's missionaries that will go all over the world to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, to be witnesses. Jesus said to go into all the world. My life was changed because of the story of a missionary. In 1955, there were 5 missionaries that went down to the jungles of Ecuador. And you know what? They gave their lives for the gospel. And many years later, I was able to go and be with the very men who took their lives, who now follow Jesus Christ. And now we're family. And because of the love of Christ they share and show the gospel. Now we get to live in that, and we get to share it. May we be those people who live that way, and be the church who what? Who loves God, who loves others, and makes disciples. And a disciple is one who does all of these things, who worships Christ, walks with Christ, works for Christ, and witnesses for Christ. And that's how we be the church. Not just for today, but forever. And you remember, we need you, and we need your love, and we need your voices, and we need your energy to share the truth of Jesus. You are loved. Hey families, Pastor John here. I'm here with my good friend, Dave Tuck. And we just wanted to give you a brief message and say how grateful we have been to be able to serve your families with these children's videos. You would not believe the things that we have come across. Garbage trucks, storms, airplanes, fires. There was a fire one time that was started right next to the church. And even right now, we have like 4 or 5 squirrels that are coming up and down. So, I mean, we've had that piece, but it's been fun.
Oh, yeah. No, the thing has been, it's been such a wonderful time and super encouraging to be able to help to communicate both the gospel and also then how the gospel affects our current living and affects how we do family. I've been super encouraged by families that have sent in notes talking about how the kids have been impacted by the message from the videos and are enjoying them and wanting to watch them over and over again, and grappling then with the message of the video, what it is that the church looks like and how the church walks as a result of that, and how we walk in the Spirit from kind of season 1.
Yeah, and that's where the first 8 episodes we put together, just so you know, we're seeking to keep those together, where those deal with a lot of the fruits of the Spirit, deal with fear and anxiety as we walk through the COVID season. And this last group was really focused on wanting to share the mission of the church. And this is good for our parents, and it's also good for our children, because we want our children to understand what is the mission of this church. We want you to know we're devoted to you, and we love you, and doing this in this season has been very encouraging. And as we're walking into a season where we're going to be taking a pause, God has really revealed to us that there's something here. We've seen the impact of it, and so we're not saying goodbye forever. We are taking a moment to really reevaluate and see how we're going to continue with this. So we ask for your prayers in this too. And this has impacted my kids, and Dave, it's impacted your kids. How has it impacted your family?
Well, I mean, being involved in the production of it, obviously there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that my kids get to be involved in. But some of my kids, they want to know, what's happening this week? What's the monster doing this week? Yeah. Others of my kids want to be surprised on Sunday morning at 9:30 when they watch the video together. Yeah. And again, having the message of the fruits of the Spirit and how we cling to those things during times of trial, and then hearing, again, the character of what it is that God has called us to in the church, and how the church walks and how a disciple looks, has been massive, and has been a great tool even for our family, for discipling the little ones.
That's right. And so that discipleship piece is really important to us, and we want to come alongside with you. And so I'm thankful for Dave and everybody else, and people have asked about...
Now, what do you mean everybody else?
Well,
I mean, it's really just the two of us. The two of us have worked on...
Excuse me?
Or maybe three. Okay, there's 3 of us.
Well, what do you have to say?
Oh, wow.
Okay, you can... Fine. We all thank you. Keep praying for us, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.